Hi everyone, welcome to my Bandcamp page, which you can find at hailjahuti.bandcamp.com. My name is Robert Bishara, and the name of my music project is Architect of Truth. I'm a composer and recording artist from Cairo, Egypt, currently based in the Southwest. Jahuti is known in the West as Thoth. He is the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, science, and magic, among other things. So this project is inspired by him and in many ways dedicated to him and to all the listeners who enjoy my music. So I've decided to make this video to sort of introduce folks who are not familiar with my music to what I do and how you can navigate my Bandcamp page. So as you can see, there are a lot of releases. As I describe here on the right, it says my main albums are Istimta, Horny Cricket, Chicago Symphony, and Architect of Truth, in that order. Most other releases are archival materials spanning from 2001. So I started making music really early on, probably in high school. And I was in two bands in high school, playing the drums. Then I left one of the two bands and stayed in the other band for a while after graduating from high school. Um, Moved from just playing the drums to playing the drums and singing and becoming a band leader and also writing songs and recording songs with the band, etc., etc. So I do have this background in rock music in many ways. At the same time, I was really influenced by electronic music, particularly house. And so my first release is actually this album called Space Chicks. As you can see, it dates back to 2001. And I produced it with EJ. And yeah, so this is the first album I've made, and I've made it basically using samples that I put together in the program called EJ. So this is my first attempt, really. So anyways, this gives you a sample. There's a concept, as you can see from the title tracks. And, you know, I'll try to go through what you can find on here so you can get a sense of how to navigate this. So I'm obsessed with archiving stuff, as you can see. Believe it or not, this is not everything that I have that's recorded. This is just gives you a taste of what, been recording since 2001, using different programs, starting with EJ, but then moving to Cakewalk. So I have a lot of Cakewalk recordings, which are not the best, but they're the early stuff. And then, so for example, if you look at the Kemet mixtape series, Kemet, of course, is the ancient Egyptian name for Egypt, how ancient Egyptians referred to Egypt. This symbol over here, the hieroglyphs, are the symbols for Kemet. Kemet meant literally black fertile soil, which is the kind of soil that you find on the banks of the Nile, the River Nile. So if you look at the Kemet mixtape, there are 4 volumes. The first volume is comprised of songs recorded in Cairo between 2004 and 2009. So during this phase, I was using Pro Tools as opposed to Cakewalk, so the recordings sound much better. So just to give you a sample, here's Greek Democracy. So a lot of the music that you find on my Bandcamp page is original music composed and arranged by myself, produced by myself, and also performed by myself. Um, of course, if there are features or someone helped me with something, lyrics or, playing an instrument, I give them credit. But just assume when you're hearing things that it's me performing every single instrument, recording every single track and mixing it, mastering it, etc. So as you can imagine, it's a lot of work. So anyways, the 4 volumes of Kemet Mixtape represent recordings done in Egypt before I immigrated to the United States. So Kemet Mixtape Volume 1 is comprised of 25 songs from that period between 2004 and 2009. The second volume has my instrumental compositions from the same period. So these are not songs, but actually compositions. So let's see if I can sample Psychic Attack of the Harmless Tortilla Man. This is on the jazzier side of things. So I really like this composition, and it has a second part, which is Spiritual Entanglement with the Violent Carrot. As for Kemet Mixtape Volume 3, these are excerpts from soundtracks that I have composed, whether they're soundtracks for plays or films. So I have a bunch of soundtracks here, and in parentheses, you can see which project this is from. So for example, excuse me, Colonizers are here. It's from the play Cloud9. So this was a play that was produced in Cairo, and I acted in it and did the soundtrack. So just to give you a little bit of background, I did mention that I was in 2 bands in high school, played the drums, etc. But as someone who's obsessed with music overall, I played the guitar, I played the bass, I played the keyboard. Probably the first instrument I played was the keys, and then the drums, and of course, I love singing as well. Um, in college, I went to the American University in Cairo. For schooling, I went to Collège de la Sainte Famille, also known as Jesuit. At AUC, I studied theater and music, so I got deeply into classical music and, listened to everything. And I pretty much regard myself as a composer, regardless of what genre I'm composing in. So I could be composing something jazzy or rock or electronic, but I think as a composer, composing using different media, different style, different genres. So this is Kemet Mixtape Volume 4, which is basically songs that were composed or recorded between 2002 and 2004. So this is using Cakewalk. The recordings are not ideal for this period, but what's really nice about it is that it captures my compositions during that period. So this is a song, for example, written in Arabic called الليل معمول مخصوص للحب, which is translated as the nighttime was made specifically for love. See, here you can hear me playing on the electric guitar and the bass guitar. Um, One of the things about me as a composer is, growing up Egyptian, but listening to Western music and Arabic music. Oftentimes, I don't, when I compose, I don't think in terms of genre or style. But, obviously I tap into my tradition as well as the, universal human tradition, which includes Western music as well. So you'll find elements of this and that. So that's a quick overview of Kemet Mixtapes Volume 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I also released an album called Embracing the Rejects. These are the songs that I considered putting in Kemet Mixtape Volume 4, but then ended up excluding. So they're songs that I don't think were that well recorded or are flawed, but I decided to put them together as an album called Embracing the Rejects. So here's a sample of that. This is a song called A Song. So even though the recording may not be perfect, during that time, goes back to 2002, which is 22 years ago. Mhm. I love the fact that it captures a moment, a feeling, an idea, that I'm probably not gonna recapture again. Who knows? But that's why I'm obsessed with archiving. Um, Another album from this period is an album called Chirotone. So this album was made using the Casio Tone keyboard, which is, a really cheap, affordable keyboard that was meant, for kids to play with. And I borrowed it from a dear friend of mine back in Cairo called Ahmed Khalifa. It's Casio Tone CT360 if you're interested. And I recorded all these compositions using this very basic keyboard, which sounds, very retro, and I love how it sounds, to be honest. So this is a composition called Matsalli an Nabi. Why don't you pray on the Prophet? And check it out. So that gives you a sense of the sound. This could have been easily in the Kemet Mixtapes series, but I decided to put as an album together because all of them are performed using the Casio Tone keyboard. Now, one of the things that I thought about, in terms of bridging Western music and Arabic music tends to be more sophisticated in terms of rhythm, scales because of the microtones, um, and vocal abilities of singers who can sing in those scales. Western music is more sophisticated in terms of harmony and polyphony. So when I would do a composition like this, Matsalli an Nabi, it has the scales from the Arab world and the rhythms from the Arab world, but then it has also elements of harmony. And I try to combine those things to create something new, right? Okay, so let's see where we go from here. I'll just be chronological here and say that The Way of the Family is a soundtrack that I co-composed with a dear friend of mine, Mohammed Al-Basrawi, who we went to school together. We went to Jesuit together. We're also neighbors, so he would constantly come to my uh, room and, I would play my compositions. He would play me his compositions. We would record things together. So this is an album that we made together. It's a soundtrack that was not used for a play that wasn't produced. But you can see that every track is based on one of the characters in the play. Play was called The Way of the Family. This is another album of also the Cairo periods between 2005 and 2011. So these are all compositions that weren't included in the Kemet mixtape series, so I decided to put them together under this title, Tahrir 1896, because this is Tahrir Square, or Liberation Square in Cairo in that year. Let's see what else. So, after I immigrated to the United States, um, I lived for a period in New Jersey and then in Chicago, then in rural Georgia. Now I'm in the Southwest. So pretty much in every place I lived, there's kind of music that I produced during that time period. So when I lived in Hyde Park in Chicago, these are the recordings and compositions from that period. So this is a composition called Lo'ai, which is dedicated to my wife, Coney. So that's a fun jazzy little track. So this period spans between 2009 and 2012. And during that period, I shifted from using Pro Tools to using GarageBand. So these are like a lot of GarageBand recordings from that period. During the same period, this is my most ambitious project called the Chicago Symphony. These are my parents looking at the bean, at themselves looking at the bean. And Chicago is the Native American name for Chicago, which meant stinky onion. So it really captures my time in Chicago, and it's a classical piece that's arranged electronically. It's 40 minutes long, so I recommend you check it out. I usually like folks to listen with high fidelity headphones or really good speakers if possible. So anyways, Hyde Park Chicago Symphony is from the Chicago period. Then when I lived in rural Georgia, these are the recordings from that period. So Georgia Summers captures recordings from 2012 to 2018 when I was pursuing a PhD in psychology. In Chicago, I was pursuing a Master of Fine Arts in Independent Film and Digital Imaging. So more artistically focused, Georgia Summers period, more scientifically focused. Anyways, all of these, again, I consider them as archival materials. The first proper album, probably I would consider to be Chicago Symphony from all of these recordings. That doesn't mean that there's an enjoyable stuff throughout. There is. It's full. So you'll find something that you can enjoy. After that, when I moved to the Southwest, there's Istimtaa, which is means enjoyment in Arabic. This is my first um, sort of serious album. At this point, I've shifted to using Logic, and this is the first album that's properly mastered, I would say. So this is a take. I love to sort of revisit some classic compositions or classics and put my own take on them. So this is a famous French composition called Frère Jacques, and this is my take on it. Jacques, dormez-vous, dormez-vous, sole le mattino, dum jumbo. Anyways, this is a taste. This album also was released on cassette tape because I know for a lot of audiophiles, cassette is kind of experiencing a resurgence. So if you want a cassette tape, you can order it here. The second major album after that is Horny Cricket, and there are three versions of this album. There's a version that's called Horny Cricket. There's another one called Horny Cricket Deluxe, which is basically double the amount of material. And then there's Horny Cricket Ultra, which is a combination of the two, and that's the one that was released via Spotify and Apple Music, etc. Has a wider release. But anyways, independent artists prefer Bandcamp because it's more equitable for artists in terms of how payments are distributed between the platform and the artists. So Spotify is probably the worst place for us musicians. I still have some material there, but I prefer using Bandcamp for sure. This is a fun little composition called CCCP, and it was called that because I used a synthesizer that was a Soviet synthesizer from the 80s to for the arrangement of this composition. One of the things I struggle with as a composer is how to classify my music. So, I mean, I at the overall label I would use is electronic because of how the arrangements sound like. But then after that, is it electro jazz? Is it IDM? Is it space music? Is it synthwave? These are all categories that could work or may not work. It's hard for me to know. It's probably easier for you to decide. Horny Cricket Deluxe, as I mentioned, has all the tracks from the regular Horny Cricket, but also um, 13 more tracks. So a lot there. So here's a sample from things you get from the deluxe version. All right, so that's Horny Cricket, and then I have a bunch of singles out there. So this Fibonacci, this is an ambient piece. It was part of an installation that took place at Northern New Mexico College. There's also Score, which I have. There are two versions of the same composition. So Score and Film are the same composition, but there are two versions. And that's a score that I composed for Samuel Beckett's film 1965, which is titled Film and stars Buster Keaton. So if you technically play the film and press play at the same time and synchronize it, you would get my sense of how the soundtrack would fit with the pictures. I recommend that. Another single is a cover of Frank Zappa called Dumb All Over. There's another single called Rodney King, which features Squeezy C. This is from the Chicago period. Um, let's see what else. Binaural Beats Sound Healing for the Masses is a free album I decided to release as a service to the community. I believe in the power of sound, and this album, it's not music. It's meant to be a form of therapy. It's not it doesn't replace, medical advice. It's not a substitute. It's not a diagnosis or a treatment. But in my experience, it's very powerful and beneficial as part of meditative practice. So something you can experiment with. You can even play it at very low volume, but it helps you with concentration. Like In meditation, you might use your breathing or a mantra to concentrate. You can also use these frequencies as part of your meditative practice. And they're binaural beats, so listening with headphones are always recommended. Um, my latest release, of course, is the album Architect of Truth, and I've released a vinyl version of it. So this is the first time I basically release a vinyl version of one of my albums. So I'm pretty excited about that. There's another album of outtakes that I'll release in the near future. You can see it here, Architect of Truth outtakes. Repetition ad infinitum is a performance that I did recently on my birthday at Portal Fest in Santa Fe, and it's basically me performing live for 44 minutes straight. It's mostly ambient, but again, it's a composition, so there's a lot of subtleties in there. Now, the interesting thing is Good Samaritan is the recorded version of this live performance. So you can hear how the ambient version sounds like when I perform it live, and then what happens when I think more about it and I arrange it differently and record it. So that's Good Samaritan. That gives you folks an overview of my Bandcamp page. Please come follow, subscribe, interact. Music is extremely meaningful for me. It's part of my healing journey. It's something that I enjoy tremendously, listening to music, composing music, recording music, performing music. I don't see myself stopping. So I hope this at least helps you get a sense of my background a little bit, how long I've been making music, the kind of music that I have out there, and how to navigate this seemingly complex page, which hopefully I've simplified for you now.